It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. There will be no increase in the price of petrol. That's according to President Bola Tinubu. Presidential spokesman Adjuri Ngilali says Tinubu is taking steps to curb the increase of fuel prices without having to reverse its decision to exit the subsidy regime. There are concerns that the price of petrol could soar, even reaching 750 naira per litre. Organized labor has threatened to go on a nationwide strike if the prices increase. But the presidency has called for patience, saying Nigeria's pump prices are the most cost-effective in West Africa.
Mr. President wishes to assure Nigerians, following the announcement by the NNPC Limited just yesterday, that there will be no increase in the pump price of petroleum motor spirit anywhere in the country. We repeat, the President affirms that there will be no increase in the pump price of petroleum motor spirit. It is going to be available to everybody, all right, is the presidential daily brief. This is what the NNPC supplies to the president directly for his personal viewing on a morning-by-morning basis. And he's releasing it to the public this morning for the sake of full disclosure and because he wants Nigerians to ensure that there's no need for panic at this time. We have enough fuel to supply the country. The country is wet with products and it will continue to be so. We also wish to affirm that the President is determined to maintain competitive tension within all subsectors of the petroleum industry. He is determined to ensure that our policy drawn up as well as policy implemented follows the cue that there will not be any single one entity dominating the market. The market has been deregulated, it has been liberalized, and we are moving forward in that direction without looking back.
Well, in the face of mounting concerns and speculations about potential fuel price increase, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has joined the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to assure Nigerians that there are no plans of increasing the pump price of petrol for now. Arise correspondent Georgina Ndukwe has details.
The rise in global crude oil prices has prompted East African country Kenya to reintroduce fuel subsidies to curb soaring prices of petrol. Well, in spite of Nigeria's rising inflation rates and cost of living, the Tinubu administration has repeatedly stated that there is no going back on the removal of fuel subsidy. This week, the media space has been populated by reports of another increase in petrol pump prices in coming weeks. This speculation is linked to a rise in the cost of $1 to the naira in the parallel market from 910 to 950 naira, as well as rising crude oil prices globally. But in a swift reaction, Nigeria's oil company published on its social media that it has no intention to increase its petrol pump prices as widely speculated. While the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, in an interview with Arise News, also reaffirmed NNPC's statement, dispelling speculations of a price increase.
We are not making any effort to increase price. We are still getting our product from NNPC, majorly. So, and these people are the people we look up to. And they have come out clearly that they are not intending to increase price. I think this will go a long way to dousing every tension.
Ipman also re-emphasized the need to inculcate compressed natural gas as a cleaner alternative to fuel.
By the time we incorporate CNG into our station that we've already built, investment running over 10 trillion, and people will be talking about where is our investment. We have done this thing over the years, and it's now that it will pay this country. Where you co-locate this CNG, component and begin to use it rather than, leaving us.
But what is the possibility of not having another increase considering the poor performance of the Naira against the dollar? This expert explains.
So as the global price for fuel increases, that would also be reflected in our markets. And of course, as the amount of money that we also need to use to buy the foreign currency, which is in dollars, would also be affected as the Nigeria's currency continues to weaken. So there are no easy fixes. There will be some time where we'll need to adjust to the pricing.
As the nation continues to grapple with economic challenges and concerns over fuel affordability, Ipman's reassurance comes as a timely measure to alleviate the fears of Nigerian citizens who are eager to avoid any additional financial strain. Georgina Nupezaika, Arise News.
Thanks, Georgina. No plans to increase fuel price. No plans to increase fuel price. No, I want to say it 3 times so that it becomes very real.
Interesting. Today, I'd like to pay great tribute to Mr. Shaka, the editor of This Day. I thought that was the best journalistic expression thus far. Subsidy is gone. Long live fuel subsidy. Pretty much reminds me of the old king is gone. Long live the king. What that means, tongue-in-cheek, is subsidy is back. Where did it go before? Nowhere. And I'll break it down for you. Good morning once again, everybody. Welcome to Nigeria. At first, we said we pulled out subsidy. NNPC became the largest importer of this product. As of today, we have not been able to see a proper pricing template. Oh, okay, they released one. I saw one that talked about the fact that the landing cost goes up to 651. Landing cost goes up to 651, but we're buying at the pumps at 580, and you tell me subsidy was gone? Subsidy was not gone. Landing cost is 651 today. People are buying at the pumps for 670 up north in Abuja. You told me subsidy is gone. It never went anywhere. And that's what we keep telling ourselves. So what do we want to do? Dilly-dallying with policies, not being coherent. And I think the NNPC has a lot of explanations to be able to make, and they have not made to us. Yes, I understand what the president said. Anyway, what President Tinubu said is something he had always said before. He said he was going to intervene in petrol price. And when he said that, when he gave that palliative speech, I said, yes, it means that he signaled that subsidy is going to remain. And when NNPC is so quick to compare our pricing with price of other African countries, 2 questions I'd like to ask. Do economic conditions, are they the same? What's the purchasing power parity ratio? We are comparing our petrol price with that of Côte d'Ivoire. Do they produce oil as much as we do? No. I think a fair comparison would be more of Angola, which is a fellow oil producer in our own capacity, rather than this comparison here and there and all of that. Then stretching it one step further, there is nothing that is happening now that we do not know was happening. I think it was Rotus that even challenged the pricing before now of the products by saying that there was something that was not clear about this pricing. Hasn't it been proven right? Rotus have been proven right. And today they keep saying, oh, there's no subsidy. And how many of the marketers imported? NNPC still pretty much control the markets. But my pain in all of this is we have allowed people suffer so much. And that's why I say, for us to be able to come out of these problems, we do not need to be impetuous. We need to be circumspect. I didn't see a lot of being circumspect in making the 2 big decisions as regards unification and subsidy removal. Right. People just suffered in vain.
What are the specific issues here? Let's address the issues. Number 1, on May 29, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said fuel subsidy is gone. Okay? And the major criticism that we have offered is that there wasn't enough thought given into that process. And that has caused so much hardship, number 1. Number 2, we were told at the time that market forces will regulate the market for pump price of fuel. Now today, these market forces have been punishing us. And we are just being told now that delivery, landing costs, which includes administrative costs, the cost of freight and all of that, is up to about 651 or so, which is higher than the pump price of fuel. Simple economics, even for people who are dumb and are just emotional. Simple economics is that it's not sustainable at that rate. So if government now comes and says, oh, look, the federal government will not increase pump price, NNPC says nobody is increasing pump price. Okay, if your landing cost is 651 and you are selling at 617 per liter, my teacher in financial systems at the University of Oxford, Said Business School, told us that return on investment is what you focus on as a business person. So where is the return on investment? So what exactly is government saying? Number 3, Ajuri yesterday, had a press conference, one of my predecessors in that chair, and said, well, government is not going to increase fuel price. And says, we will maintain the status quo and all of that. Okay, what does that really mean? At the same time, government is saying market forces will continue to apply. What I see here is confusion. Shonobi, the CBN person, came yesterday, or was it the other day? He said, the president is concerned. Ajuri Ngelale was saying yesterday, the president affirms. The president is concerned, he is affirming. Okay, what exactly is he concerned about? What exactly is he affirming? What is he saying, Gone? As you will say. No, what is he saying? There should be clarity in terms of how they are approaching this particular matter. And then Ajuri yesterday was giving us examples of fuel price in Côte d'Ivoire, in Mali, in Senegal, in in Guinea. These are not oil-producing countries. So this comparison of the price of the pump price of fuel in Nigeria to the pump price to the cost of a Coca-Cola drink in Seychelles and Mauritius, no, it's a very dubious way of approaching the issue. Nigerians are saying we are an oil-producing country, and that's the position of NLC. Why are we not producing and refining oil here? Why are we even importing the same thing that God has given us? They say Dangote magic will solve the problem. Now, the Dangote magic has not yet happened. And if you talk to the Dangote refinery people, they will tell you they have their own challenges. So market forces, market forces. I've been quoting Joseph Stiglitz on this thing. People just take textbook knowledge, they run with it, but the textbook knowledge that they don't even understand, that they have not gone to school for, the relevant books they have not even read. When they meet with all these IMF, World Bank, WTO people, they are the weakest link in the room because they don't have the knowledge. And then they come here. Okay, what we are being told now is that since May 29 to date, Nigerians have been punished for policy, wrong articulation of policy. And which is why in some of the reports I have read, Johnson Chukwu was saying, yes, it simply means that subsidy has returned. If President Tinubu is saying we will not increase subsidy, we will not increase fuel price, then it means that fuel subsidy is coming back through the back door. That is simply what it means. And it's a failure of their, adoption of neoliberal economics, which does not work automatically because objective conditions are also relevant. Now, my final point on this. In Kenya, when President William Ruto came to power in September 2021, one of the things he said was that he was not going to provide subsidy for consumption. He will provide subsidy for production. And on the basis of that, he removed fuel subsidy. Do you know that in Kenya now, Kenya has now said between now and September 26, they will suspend the fuel subsidy removal regime. and that people, can have some respite. Because it did not work in Kenya. We sat on this table. We were praising William Ruto. We were saying, oh, William Ruto promised and he has delivered. He saw that the policy that he introduced, of which he himself was a part with Kenyatta, I think that's his name, the man who was president before him, that is not working. Now he has reversed himself. Because there have been protests in Kenya. There have been killings in Kenya.
Yeah.
And now the president says, I listen to the voice of the people. I give you some respite. Okay, we may have improved in terms of food inflation rate, but we see that the people cannot breathe. So what Nigerians are telling President Tinubu is that let the people breathe. If policy articulation, policy application has failed, be humble enough, like William Ruto of Kenya, show enough courage, like William Ruto of Kenya, and be honest with the people and say, well, I don't think this thing is working. Maybe there's something else we need to look at. That's not cowardice. That's courage. That's responsible leadership. That's accountability. That's transparency. But to come and confront we, the suffering people of Nigeria, with they pay 1,000 naira per liter in Senegal. Are we Senegal? And they pay 1,100 in Côte d'Ivoire. This is not Côte d'Ivoire. This is not Senegal. This is Nigeria. 7th largest producer of crude oil in Nigeria. Why can't we refine our fuel? Why can't we address our foreign exchange problems? Why is it that the people teaching us voodoo economics, can't just read even the same textbooks? They just listen to received wisdom and they run with it. This is what is annoying about the situation. There's no cowardice in revising policy. So the government can look at our plight. Those of us who are now suffering, those of us who have now been totally impoverished, and then say, well, the people of Nigeria confessed. We confessed. Economic policies from Washington do not confess. This is about us, the people of Nigeria.
Absolutely. Just, Rufai, just
okay,
2 seconds.
Go ahead.
Okay,
2 seconds. That their chart was wrong because Côte d'Ivoire paid 725 billion CFA francs on fuel subsidies.
All right,
so that chart is wrong.
Subsidy, I'm glad that you referred to President William Ruto in terms of his reversal of the policy or perhaps reintroduction of subsidy in Kenya following protests and in some cases killings in Kenya as a result of the sufferings of the people. I'm hoping that President Tinubu will not wait until we have violent protests and people just being desperate enough to begin to attack one another. In some instances, we've seen people we've seen crime rates jump as the reality of poverty for people is becoming more obvious. So we're hoping that we wouldn't get to that point before we go back in terms of going back to the drawing board. And just as a reminder, whenever we hear these statements from the presidency, they are not still giving us information on cushions for the people who are most affected. As Dr. Bati said, no one is unaffected now. From the middle class to the lower class, everybody is now affected by this fuel subsidy removal and the price of fuel. Mr. Johnson Chukwu also pointed out to the exchange rate and the fact that that is why the price of fuel will continue to go up because of the unification of the exchange rate and the fact that it is not managed. It's not managed by the federal government. So it's important for us to look at these things, but very importantly, no news yet with regards to what the federal government is going to do for the poorest, at least to manage the effect, because even if the current price remains the same at 568, the fact still remains that it is about 3 times more than what it was pre-May 29. And prices have gone up. We've seen inflation numbers come out. Food inflation very high. We need to address this, and not just with state governors. Whilst I applaud state governors, giving some form of palliatives to their citizens, we have that's the job of NGOs and organizations like that. You need to create an enabling environment for people to prosper and not live from hand to mouth or from handouts from their government. We need a better policy to ensure that people are enabled to be prosperous in Nigeria. So looking forward to that statement being released beyond the assurance that the pump price will remain the same. What is the plan to cushion the effect until things stabilize in Nigeria? President Tinubu, we await. We move on to our next story, and President Tinubu has commended the solidarity of the economic community of Central African states on the political impasse in Niger. The president received the special envoy of President Ali Bongo Ondimba and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Gabon at the State House in Abuja. Tinubu said the special message of support and solidarity from President Bongo, who doubles as the chairman of ECOWAS, expressing full support for ECOWAS resolutions on Niger, proves that military interference in democratic governance is not acceptable on the African continent. And in the meantime, residents in Niger's capital are lamenting the rising cost of living following sanctions by the West African Regional Bloc. Arise correspondent Awal Ibrahim reports from Niamey.
Prices of food items are now on the rise in Niamey as the ECOWAS sanction against the junta in Niger Republic begins to bite the pocket of the low-income earner. And many businesses are facing low patronage because many people, especially foreigners, are said to have left Niamey in the first day of the coup. Business owners are complaining about the shortage of some commodities that are often brought in from neighboring countries like Nigeria, while consumers of some goods and services are lamenting on the recent increase on prices of items. They seek an urgent resolution to the economic and political crisis in the country. A walk to some major markets in Niamey indicates a low turnout in buyers, as many people have started leaving the capital to other towns and the hinterland due to the fear of military attacks on the city as being threatened by ECOWAS. Business owners and buyers say the prices of food items like frozen fish, chicken, rice, maize, millet, and sagoon have increased to a reasonable percent. But the price of beans is said to be on the decline as Niger Republic is a major producer of beans.
There are no customers, and those we are buying from are still increasing the prices because there is no supply from Nigeria and Benin. Goods are at the border, but they are not allowing them into Niger. This situation is affecting our business.
The market is coming to a standstill because goods are not coming in because of the border closure. No one is traveling out or into our country. The customers are not forthcoming. All we have to do is to thank Allah because peace is all we want in the entire Africa, not just in Nigeria alone.
Small business owners are suspecting some major marketers of holding goods since the major commercial borders between Niger and especially Nigeria and Benin Republic remain closed in compliance with ECOWAS sanction imposed on the Nigerian military junta.
They are going to be our brother's keeper towards surviving this situation and also to find the solution. In this world, you will only enjoy after suffering. Then you will get freedom. What is happening now is a lesson for us because we ought to have been producing what we want years back. So we should focus on how to be producing what we want.
Many Niamey residents say if the situation continues for a longer period, there would be more exodus of people from the capital into other towns, rural communities, or even some neighboring countries. Awal Ibrahim, Arise News, Niamey.
Niger's sanctions are biting hard,
Yes.
and the president has said no going back.
Yes, hopefully this sanction will be able to push them to talk. I thought when they went to meet them over the weekend, they said they were ready to talk, but they were not showing people that were ready to talk, because then we start to hear they want to charge Bazoum for high treason and the likes. I think the Nigerians should come out and speak to ECOWAS. You know, yesterday also they also took a measure. They shut down the bilateral relationship with Ivory Coast. You know, because over a comment made, I think they recalled the ambassador and all of that. If they truly want to talk, they need to come to the table and talk. And if the sanctions are hitting hard, which is sad for me because it's the poor people of Niger it will normally hit. But apart from all of this, I want to talk about our own problems within. It's as if we're looking too much at Niger, we're forgetting our own problems within. Look at what's happening in Plateau again. 20 soldiers killed, Nigerian airplane shot. Some bandits are saying they take responsibility for shooting our plane. The military is saying otherwise. We have our own internal problems that we should face. Look at Oponembe. We've got a lot of crises within that we should face. Yes, I know Niger has international dimensions to it, but we should also look at what is facing us within.
Okay, in the Dance of the Forest, Wole Soyinka wrote that war is a legacy which past ages afford us. I think that was a statement put in the mouth of Murano, if I remember my literature very well. But the main issue, the main point, interpretation of that line in Wole Soyinka's 1968 Dance of the Forest is simply that, look, in a war situation, everybody will suffer. So, if you don't embrace the option of peace and you have war, you will suffer. If you have crisis, you will suffer. It's humanity that will be placed at the edge of the precipice. So if people in Niger are saying that they are feeling the sanctions, well, that's the reality of this kind of situation in which they have found themselves. The residual point is that in a conflict situation, it is the human beings that will suffer. Why is every group in northern Nigeria, Northern Elders Forum, coalition of northern groups, every group saying, we don't want war, we don't want war? Because there are 7 states along the 999 miles bordering Niger. Because those people too will suffer. There will be collateral damage. So the sanctions bite hard, which is a comment on the theory that sometimes sanctions don't work. Well, we've just seen now that sanctions are even working in Russia, where interest rate has been hiked by 350 basis points, taking interest rate to about 12% in Russia, despite the grandstanding by Vladimir Putin that he can stand up to the rest of the world. So these sanctions, of course, work. President Tinubu has told us that, those sanctions will remain. But what is instructive is that the standby force that they said, ECOWAS will deploy has not been deployed. I think there's some slowing down in that regard. And ECOWAS military chiefs are meeting tomorrow and Friday in Ghana, Accra, Ghana. I think many of us will be relieved that they are not meeting in Nigeria, because Nigeria was being made the main focus of the response to the crisis in Niger. Now they are going to Akufo-Addo, whose father said Ghanaians are so aggrieved they've been slapping the statue of his father, saying, your son is punishing us. Your son has brought wrong economic policies. Well, if you bring that to Nigeria, Tinubu's father doesn't have a statue somewhere that people can go and slap. But that's how people respond. That's how people feel affected. Okay? So what will the ECOWAS chiefs decide tomorrow? Will they come back and say, well, now that the Nigerians want to speak, want to dialogue, maybe we will change our tactics? Or would they be more concerned, as we have seen, about the resolution of the coup leaders in Niger to make sure that they put President Bazoum, through a trial of high treason? And anybody that is an elementary student of law will know that when you are charged for high treason, you are heading towards the guillotine. So that's part of the dilemma, that ECOWAS faces. The ECOWAS chairman, receiving solidarity visit through the foreign minister of Gabon, representing President Bongo Ondimba, said the right things by saying that the solidarity is in order, which is in line with AU resolution, ECOWAS resolution, and the position of Germany and other, interested parties like the European Union Commission. But Thursday, Friday, we'll see what the latest development will be. But if the people of Gabon say they are hungry, well, it's okay. Yeah, this is the reality. We are hungry here too, even without the activation of the standby force. So we are all in this. When you find yourself in a conflict situation, it is the people that suffer.
Yes. When the second, at the bottom, poorest nation in the world says that they are hungry, it means that things are really, really bad, especially following the sanctions by ECOWAS on Niger. And even though they've said, part of their conversations with the Islamic cleric was that they should, that ECOWAS should take away the sanctions and they would be open to dialogue. The events afterwards didn't quite inspire confidence that they are ready to really pursue the diplomatic route in terms of dialogue when they announced that they were going to try President Bazoum for high treason. However, this brings back the conversation when it comes to conflict resolution, diplomacy, and dialogue, and the criticism of the initial move by ECOWAS by giving a 7-day ultimatum without exhausting the route of persuasion through sanctions that obviously bites hard currently. As already been mentioned, Niger is very dependent on international and neighboring countries' support for medical supplies, for food supplies. They are about 60% dependent. And so if we close those connections, then of course they will be forced to have to dialogue, because at some point, even though we saw the people rejoicing and jubilating following the coup, when things get really hard, it's the same people who will revolt and ask the junta to dialogue with ECOWAS, because there's only as much time as they can withstand these sanctions. Another thing to wonder is what's giving, or who is giving Niger such confidence that even despite ECOWAS stance, ECAS now, that's the Economic Community of Central African States, stance with regards to no to coups in Africa, they're still trying to hold their own and giving terms and ultimatum, when at this point, quite frankly, if the people are at the fore of their revolution, then they should be knocking on ECOWAS's door to have conversations, to dialogue, so that it can relieve the pressure and the poverty on the people. How long will the people take it before they go out to revolt? I hope that the military junta in Niger would not wait until that, and then people start, it gets very chaotic, and people start fighting and killing themselves, even within Niger. I hope the doors will be open, and that they will begin to look for ways to bring ECOWAS into the conversation and sort out some form of agreement, whether it be a suspended a transition period, release of President Bazoum. They need to have conversations, bring their terms to the table, negotiate, and let there be peace in Niger and the rest of the West African bloc.